This is part 3 of 3.
Now we're going to a segment that's my favorite part of Buddhism, the moral stories, or courses, known as suttas in Pali and sutras in Sanskrit. As promised, I will explore these in depth and give them the attention that they deserve. Sutras are scriptural narratives that form the backbone of Buddhist teachings, providing guidance on moral, philosophical, and spiritual matters. These texts are meant to serve as accessible guides for practitioners, offering wisdom on how to navigate the complexities of life and attain enlightenment. Each sutta, through parables or discourses, teaches lessons that are both timeless and universally applicable. Here are my top 3 suttas.
The gift of anger. One day, the Buddha, accompanied by his following of monks and nuns, ventured into a village. Seeking shelter from the heat, they rested under a canopy, where the Buddha took the opportunity to impart his wisdom. Word of the revered teacher's presence spread, attracting villagers to gather and listen. Among the crowd was a discontented young man, wary of outsiders who came bearing teachings or goods. His patience thinning as the assembly swelled, he openly accused the Buddha of exploiting the villagers' hospitality, expecting offerings of food and money in return for his words. The young man kept yelling from the crowd and insulting the Buddha. Undisturbed by the man's insults, the Buddha continued with his teaching. After he finished speaking, the Buddha invited the young man closer with a demeanor of compassion and posed a simple question. If you want to give someone a gift, but that person did not accept the gift, then to whom does that gift belong? Confused but defiant, the man answered, "Well, it would belong to me, since I'm the giver." "Exactly so," the Buddha replied. "In the same way, I do not accept your insults or your anger. Therefore, they will remain with you." Realizing the depth of the Buddha's wisdom, the man clasped his hands together, bowed his head, and said, "Magnificent, Master Gautama, magnificent."
This story, The Gift of Anger, sometimes called The Buddha and the Angry Man, is quite a famous story that has been repeated by many. However, the story slightly varies from the actual canonical text. The central message remains the same, but the context of the story is different. The original story is called the Akkosa Sutta, found in the Pali Canon within the Samyutta Nikaya. This sutta is my favorite Buddhist story, and the lesson that it teaches is profound and useful. The sutta presents an encounter between the Buddha and a man named Akkosa Barabacha, who verbally abuses the Buddha. Akkosa is furious because he's heard that one of his relatives had left their family and a normal lifestyle to become a follower of the Buddha and his monastic community. In the face of this verbal assault, the Buddha remains calm and composed. He asks Akkosa to consider a scenario where he receives guests to his house. The Buddha poses the question, if you prepare a meal for your guests, but they do not accept the food, then to whom does the food belong? Akkosa replies that the food would remain with him, the host. The Buddha uses this analogy to draw a parallel to the situation, suggesting that just as the unclaimed food remains with the host, so too do the insults remain with Akkosa, as the Buddha does not accept them. The Buddha goes on to say, whoever returns insult to one who is insulting, returns taunts to one who is taunting, returns a berating to one who is berating, is said to be eating together, sharing company with that person. But I am neither eating together nor sharing your company, Brahman. It's all yours. Now, when Akkosa hears this, he thinks that the Buddha is cursing him and insinuates that the Buddha himself is acting in an angry manner. But the Buddha responds to this with a teaching on the nature of anger and the path to peace, and it's an eye-opening revelation. The Buddha points out that responding with anger to an angry person only makes things worse. Instead, he advocates for non-reactivity, suggesting that by not returning anger with anger, one effectively wins a battle hard to win. The Buddha further explains that by remaining calm when faced with another's anger, one acts for the good of both parties involved. This mindful response not only helps to de-escalate the situation, but also contributes to the well-being of both the individual and the agitator. He stresses that working towards the cure of both one's own and the other person's anger is the true embodiment of Dharma, and those who misunderstand this approach as foolish are lacking in their understanding of the Dharma. After hearing these words, Akkosa recognizes the wisdom and the truth in the Buddha's teaching. He praises the Buddha and expresses his desire to join the Buddha's Sangha. He requests to be admitted as a monk, a request that the Buddha grants. Akkosa's subsequent practice leads him to attain enlightenment, becoming an arahant and realizing the end of suffering for himself. This is one powerful story. It teaches a valuable lesson on multiple points. First, non-engagement with negativity. It underscores the principle that one has the choice not to engage with negativity and conflict even when directly confronted with it. By not responding in kind to insults, one maintains their peace and dignity. Second, personal responsibility and mindfulness. The Buddha's response highlights personal responsibility in conflict situations. Each individual is responsible for their actions and reactions. Choosing not to retaliate or participate in negativity is a way of taking responsibility for one's own peace of mind. The Buddha's refusal to share company with Akkosa in negativity is a demonstration of mindfulness and conscious choice. It shows an awareness of the consequences of one's responses and the power of choosing a path of peace. The statement, "It's all yours," emphasizes that the originator of negativity retains ownership of their actions and their consequences. If one does not accept the negativity directed at them, it remains with the person who initiated it. Third, skillful speech. The Buddha's skillful response is an example of right speech, one of the factors of the Noble Eightfold Path. He engages in a manner that is peaceful, calm, and aimed at teaching rather than escalating conflict. And fourth, compassion. The Buddha's response to Akkosa's insults not only demonstrates mindfulness and personal responsibility, but also deep compassion. Compassion here is not just about being kind to those who are kind to us. It's about maintaining a compassionate stance even towards those who direct negativity our way. The Buddha's response to Akkosa shows a profound understanding of the nature of anger and suffering. Instead of reacting with more anger, which would only perpetuate suffering, the Buddha chooses a response that has the potential to alleviate it. This approach reflects a deep compassion for others, recognizing that anger is often a manifestation of underlying pain or confusion. By not engaging with Akkosa's insults and explaining why through the guest analogy, the Buddha turns a potentially hostile encounter into a teaching moment. This is an act of compassion, both towards Akkosa, offering him a way out of his anger, and towards others who might learn from this example. In Buddhism, as in Hinduism and Jainism, there is a principle called ahimsa, or non-harming, and the Buddha's interaction with Akkosa is a practical demonstration of this principle. By choosing not to retaliate, the Buddha embodies compassion through non-harming, showing that true strength lies in maintaining peace and goodwill, even in the face of provocation. And finally, the Buddha's calm and composed reaction serves as an invitation for Akkosa to reflect on his own actions and possibly transform his understanding and behavior. This potential for transformation is a compassionate gift, as it opens the door for Akkosa and others to move towards a more peaceful and enlightened way of being. When I posted this story as a short video on social media, it got a lot of views in a very short time, and I think it's because we all recognize the timeless wisdom in this story. We've all been on the receiving end where someone's anger hits us like a wave, and how we handle it can either fan the flames or douse them. It's a tricky dance, isn't it? Reacting in the heat of the moment can steal our peace, all thanks to someone else's storm. But here's the twist. We've also been the ones throwing out the heat, haven't we? This is the beauty in this lesson. We're both the giver and the receiver. We have also been the ones tossing out sharp words and hoping they stick. Yet, when the other person doesn't bite back, we're the ones left stewing in that brewed up negativity. It's like throwing a boomerang of anger that never comes back. It ends up weighing us down instead. It really makes you think, doesn't it? Holding on to that anger does nothing but sour our own mood. It's quite the eye-opener, a real game changer in understanding how letting go can actually set us free. The Buddha had that wonderful statement, whoever returns insult to one who is insulting, returns taunt to one who is taunting, returns a berating to one who is berating, is said to be eating together, sharing company with that person. The Buddha uses this metaphor of dining together to illustrate the intimacy and mutual participation involved in engaging with someone's negativity. By responding in kind to insults, one essentially joins the other person in their negative state, becoming complicit in the conflict. It's almost like they're sitting down together at a meal, sharing in the exchange of negativity. The Buddha's refusal to engage by saying, "But I am neither eating together nor sharing your company, Brahman, it's all yours." The Buddha explicitly refuses to participate in the cycle of conflict and negativity. He communicates that he does not accept Akkosa's invitation to join in a mutual exchange of insults. Instead, he maintains his equanimity and detachment, indicating that the anger and negativity belong solely to Akkosa, since the Buddha chooses not to engage with them.
Buddha and the muddy water. While traveling with his disciples, the Buddha arrived at a place where they needed water to drink. Spotting a pond nearby, the Buddha asked one of his disciples, Ananda, to fetch some water from the pond. As Ananda approached the pond, he noticed that the water had become turbid and muddy, stirred up by an ox cart that had just crossed through it. Understanding that the water was not fit to drink in its current state, Ananda returned and informed the Buddha about the situation. The Buddha then asked Ananda to wait a little longer before fetching the water again. Upon his return, Ananda found that the water was still not clear, as it had been disturbed again. He went back to the Buddha once more without water. The Buddha asked Ananda to try again after a while. This time, when Ananda returned to the pond, he found that the mud had settled and the water above it was clear and clean. Ananda collected the water and brought it to the Buddha. The Buddha then used this moment to teach a valuable lesson to his disciples. Just like the water in the pond, the mind can also become disturbed and agitated. When it is, you must learn to let it be. Give it time. And just as the mud settles and the water clears on its own, so too will the mind become clear and calm if you do not disturb it further. This clarity and peace come not from forcing it, but from letting things settle naturally.
While the story of the Buddha and the muddy water serves as an illustration of patience and mental clarity, it's important to note that this tale does not appear in any canonical Buddhist text. The narrative likely evolved as an instructive parable, synthesizing elements from various teachings and anecdotes about the Buddha's life. Such stories, while not directly traceable to specific discourses of the Buddha, often emerge within the Buddhist tradition to underscore the practical applications of the Buddha's teachings. They serve to make the abstract principles more accessible and relatable to everyday life, thereby helping followers understand and apply the Dharma in their personal experiences. Although there's no direct mention of a parable with muddy water in the canonical Buddhist text, there is a sutta called the Sangaravo Sutta where the Buddha talks about different states of water. In the dialogue with Brahman Sangarava at Savatthi, the Buddha explains why sometimes sacred texts are not clearly understood regardless of one's familiarity with them. He identifies 5 mental impediments, sense desires, laziness, worry, and doubt that cloud judgment and comprehension, likening each to disturbed states of water. These impediments obscure clarity and prevent one from seeing things as they are.
Sense desires cloud the mind like water dyed with colors. Ill will agitates the mind as boiling water does. Laziness cover awareness like moss over water. Worry disturbs the mind like wind-stirred water. Doubt muddies perception as turbid water in darkness.
The Buddha compares these disturbed states with the calm mind that is free from these impediments, similar to clear and still water. This mental clarity allows for true understanding of sacred texts and deeper insights into one's well-being and that of others. The key message is that overcoming these impediments is essential for wisdom and clear understanding. The insights from the Sangaravo Sutta are deeply relevant in today's fast-paced and distraction-filled world. The sutta's emphasis on the clear and calm mind, free from the 5 impediments, offers valuable guidance on how to achieve mental clarity and peace amidst the chaos of modern living. By understanding and working to overcome these impediments, individuals can enhance their ability to concentrate, make thoughtful decisions, and perceive their environments and interactions more clearly. Sense desires can lead to overindulgence or addiction to pleasures that derail focus and satisfaction. Learning to moderate these desires helps maintain balance and contentment. Ill will or resentment can consume one's mental energy and focus. Practicing forgiveness and compassion can free up this energy for more constructive purposes. Laziness can prevent us from achieving our goals and experiencing growth. Cultivating motivation and discipline is crucial to personal and professional development. Worry can paralyze decision-making and action. Developing strategies to manage anxiety and stress is essential for mental well-being. Doubt can undermine confidence and hinder progress. Seeking clarity through knowledge and reflection can strengthen resolve and purpose. In essence, applying the teachings from the Sangaravo Sutta can lead to a more mindful and purposeful existence. As we learn to still the disturbances of the mind, just as the muddy water settles to clarity, we too can discover greater peace and insight in our lives. This transformation not only benefits individual well-being, but also enhances our interactions and contributions to the wider community.
Buddha and the poison arrow. One day, one of the Buddha's disciples, Cula-Malunkyovada, found himself entangled in deep philosophical questions. He was troubled by thoughts about the universe's nature, the soul's relation to the body, and what happens after death. With these questions weighing heavily on his mind, Cula-Malunkyovada approached the Buddha, seeking answers. He declared that if the Buddha did not clarify these mysteries, he would abandon his monastic life and return to the lay world. The Buddha, understanding the depth of Cula-Malunkyovada's confusion and the nature of his inquiry, decided to address his disciples' turmoil with a parable. Imagine, the Buddha began, a man is walking in the forest when he is suddenly struck by a poisoned arrow. His friends and relatives, concerned for his life, quickly bring a surgeon to treat him. However, the man refuses the surgeon's help until he knows who shot the arrow, the caste or family of the archer, the village the archer hailed from, the kind of wood the bow was made of, the type of feathers on the arrow, and myriad other details. The Buddha paused, letting the imagery sink in, then continued. If the man were to hold off the treatment until all his questions were answered, he would surely die before then. In the same way, Cula-Malunkyovada, if one were to say they will not lead the noble life until the Buddha answered all questions about the world, the gods, or the afterlife, they would die before finding the path to liberation. What I have taught, the Buddha emphasized, is the practical path to liberation, similar to removing the poisoned arrow, focusing on what truly matters, understanding suffering, its origin, its cessation, and the path leading to its cessation. The parable of the poison arrow thus served as a profound teaching. It reminded Cula-Malunkyovada and all who heard it of the importance of focusing on the essential teachings of the Buddha that directly address suffering and its alleviation, rather than getting lost in speculative thought that does not aid in the journey to enlightenment. Through this story, the Buddha skillfully redirected his disciples' quest for knowledge, steering him away from unanswerable queries and back to the practical and transformative path of the Dharma. Malunkyaputta learned that the path to true liberation lies not in the speculative answers to metaphysical questions, but in understanding and practicing the Four Noble Truths as taught by the Buddha.
Unlike the previous story on the muddy water, the story of the poison arrow is canonical and can be found in the Cula-Malunkyovada Sutta, which is preserved in the Pali Canon, specifically within the Majjhima Nikaya, the collection of middle-length discourses. This sutta is a significant teaching because it vividly illustrates the Buddha's practical approach to spiritual practice and underscores the importance of focusing on what is truly essential for liberation from suffering. In modern life, the lesson of the poison arrow can be especially relevant in a world filled with information overload and endless inquiries. It teaches us not to get lost in questions that do not serve our immediate purpose or contribute to our ultimate well-being. Now, this isn't to say that the Buddha discouraged an inquisitive mind or scientific inquiry. Rather, the sutta advises prioritizing our questions and focusing our energies on those that have direct implications for our lives and spiritual growth. The Poison Arrow Sutta emphasizes the urgency of addressing suffering directly, similar to treating a life-threatening wound before seeking answers to less critical questions. In contemporary terms, this can be likened to focusing on mental health, cultivating mindfulness, and improving our interpersonal relationships before delving into existential questions that may not have clear or immediate answers. The Buddha's teaching in this sutta encourages us to discern which of our questions and pursuits are truly beneficial. It teaches us to concentrate on living ethically, developing mindfulness, and cultivating compassion and wisdom, activities that directly alleviate suffering and enhance our quality of life. Thus, while the sutta does not discourage curiosity or intellectual exploration, it does prioritize practical wisdom and the immediate alleviation of suffering. This message is vital in today's fast-paced world, where it's easy to become distracted by numerous concerns that may not be crucial to our fundamental well-being and spiritual progression. Looking back on this journey, both my own and the one we've taken in this series, I can't help but feel a deep appreciation for the life and wisdom of Gautama Buddha. What started as an exploration of my religious upbringing turned into a deep dive into one of history's most enduring spiritual traditions, a tradition not built on blind belief, but on introspection, observation, and lived experience. As I revisited the teachings I was once loosely familiar with, I began to see them not just as ancient philosophy, but as practical tools for navigating the complexities of modern life. Before this journey, my perception of the Buddha was vague at best. I saw him as a supernatural figure, almost a deity, revered from a distance. I hadn't realized that this impression was shaped by my broader understanding of religion, where divine beings often exist outside the bounds of ordinary life, operating in realms beyond our own. But as I began to explore the actual story of Siddhartha Gautama, I was struck by how human he was. His journey wasn't one of mystical powers or divine intervention. It was a path marked by doubt, struggle, and deep questioning. The more I learned, the more I began to see him not as a god to be worshipped, but as a person to learn from. And this is precisely what he advocated, that we examine, reflect, and discover truth through our own experience, not through blind acceptance or inherited belief. While there's no doubt that Buddhism is a spiritual tradition, there's something especially compelling about its practical approach, its emphasis on direct experience, personal responsibility, and inner clarity. It's a way of seeing the world that feels particularly well suited to the modern life, a life shaped by rapid scientific discoveries, constant information, and a growing skepticism toward anything that cannot be tested or observed. In that context, the Buddha's invitation to come and see for yourself feels not only ancient, but timeless. And then there were the stories, the parables that have endured for over 2,000 years. These lessons, though spoken in an ancient world, remain profoundly relevant today. The Buddha's insights were not bound to temples or monasteries. They were lessons for the human condition, enduring wisdom on how to suffer less, how to live with greater awareness, and how to cultivate peace in a world that so often pulls us towards chaos. As I reflect on my own journey, on the beliefs I was raised with, the lessons I once took for granted, I see now that wisdom is not confined to one tradition. It is found in the willingness to question, to observe, to learn. And in that spirit, I leave you with the same invitation the Buddha offered all who sought his teachings. Do not accept anything simply because it is spoken. See for yourself, test it against your own experience, and follow only that which leads to clarity, to peace, to liberation. Hey, thanks for watching, especially if you watch all 3 videos. I put a lot of effort into this series and I really hope that you enjoyed it. What do you think about Buddhism or its founder, Gautama Buddha? Was everything I shared in the videos familiar to you already, or did you learn something new? Maybe you're like me and you had some ideas about Buddhism but hadn't really dug into the deeper meanings or philosophy. Maybe you had some misconceptions too. Let me know in the comments. And what do you think about the Buddhist moral stories, sutras, or parables? I love these stories and they taught me a lot. I only shared 3, but there are so many. I'll put a link below to a great resource if you want to read them yourself, or better yet, if you'd like me to read them and break them down in videos, let me know in the comments as well. Just type more parables. And if you enjoyed this video and haven't subscribed yet, please do. It really helps the channel grow. Like, comment, all that good stuff. And if you're new here, welcome. There are over 100 short videos waiting for you to dive into. Go binge on them. I also got something exciting to share. Why Dharma now has YouTube memberships. I've seen the passion in the comments, the deep reflections, the honest questions, and the spirited debates. And I want to create a space where all of that could continue, but in a more connected way. For just a few dollars a month, you can become part of a private community on Discord, a space to chat, learn, debate, and grow together. We talk about things like finding your purpose, living your dharma, exploring different spiritual traditions, and asking the big questions like, is God real? Or do we have free will? I'll be there too, joining the conversations, adding my 2 cents, and sometimes just listening. But if you're a content creator, author, or coach working in the spiritual or philosophical space, this is also a great opportunity to connect with others, share your message, and find your people. There are 3 membership levels, each with different perks. Early access to new videos, members-only content, and at the council level, a private monthly live video chat with me, where we'll take a deep dive into any topics that you want to discuss, and you can even help shape the direction of the channel. Even if you're not ready to join the discussions, you can still support the channel by becoming a member. Think of it like buying me a coffee once a month. It helps me keep creating content consistently, and every bit of support truly means a lot. And of course, you can cancel anytime, no sweat. Thanks again for being here. Whether you're just starting your journey or walking your path with intention, I'm grateful we get to explore these questions together. Until next time, keep seeking, keep growing, and live your Dharma.